What? Welcome back, everybody. We are here. It is time to talk about Arrow. Yes, it is. Oh boy. Aren't you excited, folks at home? I sure know I am. That was all. I don't know what that was, but we're gonna leave it in because, you know. Well, I don't know. All right, so let's do this. Arrow. It's not technically the last episode, but it is the last episode before Crisis. It is basically I believe it's the last episode for Arrow, because if he goes off and doesn't survive Crisis, this is kind of going to be it for Oliver Queen, or so is what we've been told. This is a pretty big episode. We get to go back to where it all began. I mean, I know we've been there a few times, and everybody's been to that island now. Oh my goodness. Not so secret and off the coast now, is it? But Lian Yu, or its translation, Purgatory. They find themselves all back on the island. Lila has basically kidnapped everybody. Tranken, Oliver, John, and Laurel wasn't enough. She had to go and kidnap everybody because she's with the Monitor now, and she just does what the Monitor tells her to do, which we find out a little bit more about that in a little bit, why she's so connected to the Monitor and why she's so hard set on helping him defeat Crisis and knowing that he's not an evil guy. I don't know. I'm still a little shaky on the Monitor, to be honest. I mean, there's just, I don't know. There's something off. I can't put my finger on it. I've been saying it for a while now while watching Arrow and The Flash. There's just something about that guy that I don't know. I don't know if he's fully evil. I don't think he's fully good either. But we're gonna keep an eye on him. We're gonna do one of these. We're gonna do. Keep an eye out. All right, so they're all back on the island. They now have to put together all the pieces of everything they've kind of been collecting throughout all these missions that the Monitor has been sending Oliver Queen on. So their mission is to build this device utilizing the energy from the island. We saw that island throughout the show has been a place of mystic and magic, and there was a relic on that island that gave somebody superpowers. There's a lot of mystifying stuff on that island, and now it's creating like an energy. I don't know if it's due to Crisis and it's like ramping up, but because even Oliver makes a point. He was like, why is it so green? This place was blown up not too long ago. And Lila basically goes, it's all the energy from the island rising up, and we need to harness that energy for the weapon. Don't know what the weapon is, and it's definitely not going to stop Crisis. This is key. There's some really key that Lila says while kind of explaining why everyone's there. And she basically is like, this will not stop Crisis. This is just to help us win or survive Crisis. So Crisis is coming either way. There's no stopping it. Clearly at this point, there really is no stopping it. I mean, we're moments away, and even on The Flash, they've already seen the red skies. So yeah, it's coming regardless. But it brings up an interesting point, because John's going, well, wait a minute. This whole time we've been trying to stop Crisis. If we don't stop Crisis, what does that mean for you, Oliver? Because it's all been told that if we can't stop Crisis, Oliver will die in Crisis. So John's going, wait a minute. We've been doing all this work knowing full well that you're going to die. And it's pretty interesting because John, my boy John, is still on. He's with me. He's on the fence about this Monitor character. Kind of seems like he changes his tune at the end of the show for like no apparent reason and no like evidence contrary to the such. He just is kind of like, you're my brother, ride or die. Oh, and also I know you got to do this, and it was Lila's journey to do what she did, and you're like, where is this coming from? The whole couple of episodes, and even this episode, if you watch it throughout, John does not trust the Monitor. In fact, he doesn't even like his own wife at this moment in time. He has no idea how she could work with a deity. You know, he's even walking around like, look, you can do whatever you want, but I don't believe that the Monitor is good, and I don't believe you're doing the right thing. So until any of that fixes, we ain't on the same page. So back off is basically what he's like. He's like, get out of my way, man. But he kind of flips tunes and changing it towards the end. Basically, you know, Arrow is like, or Oliver, however you want to, you know, the Hood, the vigilante. He kind of, after the last episode, where he woke up, where he went through that last sort of trial, that was enough to apparently convince himself that the Monitor is actually good, and all his efforts to be running away from him was been a bad idea, and now he should just help the Monitor and everything's happy-go-lucky. Which, again, I'm not really sure on that one either, because yeah, he just got tested, but like the Monitor could have given him any test to show anything that he needed to see. So I'm not really sure that. I guess maybe you had to be there, like that test. There was more to it that we just didn't see, or there was more connections that Oliver made. But it's interesting. I mean, even I know I'm just kind of jumping around characters here, but sticking on the topic of whether we kind of trust the Monitor. Even Nash Wells. Now I'm jumping over to the Flash a little bit, but in this episode he does appear. The final scene in the Flash shows up in this episode, and I'll get to that in a moment, but I just want to focus on the character. Nash is hated more Navu. I'm going to keep trying to say the name, even though we both know that I'm failing. But the Monitor, he's been trying to kill the Monitor. He's been chasing him after all these across the multiverse, trying to kill the Monitor. And in that little final episode of The Flash, right before Crisis, he gets kind of, or we think it's the Monitor, kind of saves him from, zombies attacking him or getting him. He kind of gets some help, and while he's like kind of there, he's kind of contemplating whether or not, you know, the Monitor is good or evil, or what his whole kind of path has been, which is. I don't know. Is this part of the Monitor's plan? Can he not just come out and be like, look, this is what's happening. I'm here to help. This is what I've done to help. Or does he have to put it in a way to allow like them to know or not for them to be in the dark enough to realize it on their own to prepare for any event? I mean, is it all just one big test? Like, the Monitor isn't coming off as good because he doesn't want them to trust them and think that they're safer because they have a deity on their side. And he doesn't necessarily want to be all the way evil because they don't want them to distract their focus fully to the it's very weird. He keeps this almost counterbalance of good and evil and kind of in the shadows that you're kind of like, maybe. But then again, he is a deity, so his concept of good and evil, while he might understand it on a great scale, like in terms of Crisis, may not understand in terms of like, he is just trying to accomplish a goal. He's been upfront about that goal since the beginning. I'm here to help you, to help prepare you for Crisis. That's what he's here for. He's here for the preparation of Crisis. He's not here to help per se, or actually join the team. He's here to prepare the team for Crisis. So maybe in that sort of sense, I can kind of see maybe he's not as evil as I thought, but maybe he's not as good. He has a role to play in this Crisis, and this is kind of what he's just trying to play his role. Fine. All right. So, back to Lian Yu. Mostly this episode is the few kind of people getting to say their goodbyes to each other. Anybody who hasn't really gotten a chance to for Oliver to kind of say his last 2 cents to, that's kind of what a lot of this episode is. We get to see a lot of basically the energy of the island has brought almost everybody that had died on the island back to life. More crucially, it brought back the main villain, Friars. He was there on the island, like setting up all those missiles to do that attack, and he had that guy with the mask, the orange and black mask, who was like friends or teammates with Slade, and they had like a whole army of people. Well, they're all back. Due to the energy of the island, they have somehow gotten a second lease on life, and so they have returned in full force, trying to accomplish their goal and steal the weapon for themselves that Team Arrow is trying to create. They even shoot down a plane that's got Renee, Dinah, and Roy. Booyah! I got all their names right. That's right, Roy is still with us. He joined us from the last episode. He is now a part of the team, and he's rocking and rolling. But we'll get back to Roy in a moment. Sorry, Roy. The arm. We'll get there. So we've got those guys, and those are going to kind of play the last villains of the show for Arrow. So we've got Oliver Queen. He's noticed that Friars is back. Once the plane gets shot down, they need to go rescue the team. Blah, 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 blah. He goes out and tries to stop Fires and Slade's teammate or whatever. Because basically he's like, well, I was here to stop them the first time. It needs to be me that does it again. And we get to meet, well, not meet, but re-see the kind of the very first person that helped Oliver. We get to see Yao Fei, the first kind of person to show him how to use a bow and arrow and teach him how to survive on Lian Yu, a big critical kind of character. And for them to kind of see each other in the end is, I'm not going to cry, but it's good. Those two were a big part of season 1 and Shadow, which is of course Yao Fei's daughter. They all had a very critical role for Oliver's development and who Oliver became and how he even got to put on the hood. So for him to be able to have that one last revisit with him is pretty important. And it's funny because Yao Fei just is like, he's basically like, you haven't changed a bit. You are still the impatient little boy that came to this island. And Oliver's like, come on, man. Like, we got a lot going on. Like, the whole universe is about to be destroyed. And he's like, you can still have patience. And Yao Fei kind of gets to wake Oliver up and be like, use the time you have to say your goodbyes. Don't wallow or run away and keep trying to solve all these things. Focus and get your last chance to say goodbye and use your time more wisely. So it was a cool little moment for them and those two really started the show. If it wasn't for Yao Fei, Oliver never would have survived that island and learned what he needed to learn. So really cool to see that back. I thought we were going to see Shadow. I had to watch the episode a few times because at first I thought it was her. There's this point where they're both caught up like in a net, and she uses and Yao Fei uses like, I think his knife and like the sun to like burn the rope or something like that. It kind of like jumps to just the knife and the like magnifying glass, and then the rope gets burned. So I don't know if it's him or somebody else. I kind of thought it was Shadow, but we never really see her. It would have been cool for Oliver to kind of get to see Shadow one last time. He does go and visit all the graves of all the people that he had to bury on that island. Shadow, Yao Fei, his father. and he gets to kind of have one last moment with his kids, which is really important because his kids have no idea that he's going to die. They know he disappears, but they didn't know that he knew that Crisis was going to kill him and that he wasn't going to survive, which kind of throws his daughter in a little panic, but she gets over it. So they get to kind of have a final moment of goodbye, and the one that I really liked is him and William. If you really think about it, William, the last time we see William was as a kid, and he left. He was tired of Oliver not being with him and paying more attention with him and kind of being that father figure that he needed, that he moved in with his grandparents from his mom's side and left Oliver and kind of disappeared. And that's kind of where their story had ended. And so it's really interesting to see because Oliver is still coming from the side of pain and regret of him letting his son kind of walk out his life. And William gets to kind of go be like, I know you feel that way, but that was only a year for you. It's been 20 for me. Because remember, this is the future William. And he kind of gets to go, I got to grow up and realize what it meant to sacrifice for a greater purpose. And you taught me that. And, he has a totally different level of respect for Oliver than me or anybody else. He's come to terms with who Oliver is, and he's proud of his dad. And I think that was really kind of important. I know I'm getting a little serious here, but this is kind of the last episode. They're on Leanne Yu. It's pretty powerful stuff, guys. And they did a pretty good job at closing it out. So there you go. The weapon. So the weapon turns out to not be a weapon at all. In fact, it sends Lila away. So basically it's this ball of energy, and the only way to activate it is through someone's DNA sequence. And while everybody is fighting the whole ghost army of Leanne Yu, William is figuring out how to put this machine together, and he's like, I need Oliver. This has got to be, if this has all been about him, this has got to be him that the DNA sequence matches. So they pull Oliver in, and he goes and holds the device, and nothing happens. Because this device is going to suck all the energy from the island, thus destroying all the ghosts, and getting the device ready. So 2 birds, 1 stone type of deal. And so, but Oliver grabs it, nothing's happening, and this is kind of when a critical moment happens because Oliver's not helping the team anymore, and the team's getting destroyed by this army of ghosts, and they can't figure out who this device is supposed to go to, because it would make sense that it was Oliver. We've been prepping Oliver for Crisis. Why wouldn't it be him? And then all of a sudden, William kind of figures out it's Lila that needs to grab it. And so Lila goes up, grabs the device, and we don't really know what happens, although it works, and all the ghosts disappear. She just kind of goes, I gotta go, and opens up a portal and walks right through it. She seems just as shocked as everybody else that it happened. And I think that coupled with everything else is kind of what makes John go, maybe the monitor isn't so bad, because this was not necessarily planned out, and from the look of Lila's face, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, like I know what I need to do. I've got to get out of here. I know my next step. I don't know if that really helped John or not, but he seemed okay after that, because this is kind of where we get John and Oliver's last moment together, and it's just what you want it to be. It's 2 guys going like, you good? I'm with you to the end, man. Let's go solve it. There's a little bit of a heart-to-heart, but they don't need to speak words. They've been together for so long. They know how each other are feeling. They don't need to voice it or spend time on it. They have that quick little moment, and it's just that understanding of like, look, I understand what you have to do. I'm going to be here to the end. I've always been here to the end. Sometimes I've failed you, but I'm here now. And Oliver's like, you've never failed me, man. Been here since the very beginning. Couldn't be where I am without you. You and me, let's go handle Crisis. And I'm like, yeah. John and Oliver back in the swing, go kick Christ's butt. Even though Oliver doesn't live, at least he'll have John by his side. I'm all for it. Good on ya. Booyah. Moving along. All right. So, we got that kind of closure going for us. So, the device has been activated. Lila steps through a portal. Everybody's kind of gotten to say their goodbyes. Roy. I have to mention Roy really quickly. I know I would have before, so let me throw that in there because we kind of get a sneak peek at a character change. Speedy in the comics, he kind of goes through a lot of different personas. He's Speedy, he's Red Arrow, and we even get to a character named Arsenal, which I think is what we're going to see from Roy going forward. Because Roy gets his arm chopped off. Roy loses his arm. When the plane gets shot down, a giant piece of airplane debris crashes right on his arm. And there's no way to get it off in time before the airplane explodes. One of those old chestnuts. You got somebody pinned, you got an airplane that's about to explode, you got a bunch of people on an island trying to kill you. You might want to wrap that up. So Connor, John Diggle's son, goes and gets medical supplies and basically chops Roy's arms off. Or Roy's, not arms, just one. He just loses the one. But that kind of sets him up for Arsenal because there's if you guys ever watched Young Justice. Young Justice portrayed it. He was Speedy, Red Arrow, and then he gets his arm cut off because they use it for to replicate him. Long story. Go check that out. But he gets a metal arm that that he puts a bunch of gadgets in it, like weapons and such, and he changes his name to Arsenal. So we might get that character storyline. They did set him up because now he's got no arm. Well, no arm. That was stupid. But he's got no arm anymore. So hopefully we get to see they're introducing a new superhero or a new persona for Roy to kind of take on, which is awesome. What's great is because everything else that's going on with Crisis, the Ghost, nobody really gets to know. Everybody kind of sees Roy missing an arm, but it's really interesting because all of a sudden towards the end, Oliver finally gets his moment with Roy, and he just kind of goes, "What? Sorry." He kind of just looks at Roy and goes, where'd the arm? Oh, you joined the team and then you lost an arm in 5 minutes. My bad. It was kind of this awkward, and then they just brush by it because he needs to because then William comes in and interjects and tells Roy how he found him and what led him to the island and so on and so forth, and then Roy just kind of walks out and giving William and Oliver a more heart to heart. Because it's interesting, Roy's kind of goodbye as Oliver going, "You lost an arm? Sorry, man. And, glad to have you back. Sorry about the arm. Oh, hey, son. I got to talk to him real quick. Bye, Roy." It's just, my bad. So, there you go with that. So, Roy, I hope you turned into the Arsenal. I'm very happy that you're back in the show. Good on you. I'm sorry about your arm, but if it's any foreshadowing of what's to come, you're going to get a cooler arm. So there you go. So back to the device and Lila. She stepped in through a portal. We don't know where she went. Oliver's kind of saying goodbye to everybody. And they've solved all the ghost problem. Now they need to get off the island. And he's just he's saying goodbye to everybody. He's giving John a final task. I need you to get these kids back home before the crisis happens, which I don't know how that's possible. John has no idea how they even got here. They have no forms of time travel to begin with, and Crisis is about now. So I don't think that part's gonna happen, but it's weird that they threw that in there. So maybe like that's like they'll leave shortly after Crisis begins. I'm not really sure. I do think their kind of story is over. They got their chance to say goodbye to their dad, and I don't think they need to be really heavily involved in Crisis. They kind of need to get back to their own timeline. I don't even know if their timeline is still going on or what time they'll be teleported back into. So that's interesting there. There are 2 more episodes after Crisis of Arrow. I think one of them's like a farewell goodbye episode that has nothing to do with the story. The other one is, of course, a branch off for for Green Arrow and the Canaries. We'll see if I let's focus on Crisis first. I'll get to that stuff later. I'm sure I'll watch it because all they've done throughout the last like 3-4 episodes is tell Mia how she's gonna have more stories and she's basically gonna get her own show. Really driving that home. Even in the final episode here on Leanne Yu, Oliver's sitting at his daughter going, they're having this like one-on-one, and he's like, oh, you're gonna have stories of your own. Wink, wink. Like, come on, we get it. Like, we know she's gonna have a show. Come on, let's get to the important stuff. But they're having this like last father-daughter moment after he said goodbye to everybody, and they're all leaving the island. Him and his daughter get this last little moment, and then the red skies appear, and then Lila shows up and goes boom, and we're all like, whoa, Lila, what up? And she's like, I'm not Lila anymore. I'm a harbinger of what to come. What's up? Crisis is here. And we're like, what the heck is happening? And then ending. And you're like, what in the world? And then something I did not expect was going to happen at all. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden we see Nash Wells. And we get, like I said earlier, we get that last little scene, which I'm going to walk through here now if you guys haven't watched The Flash. We get this last little scene that happened on the last episode right before Crisis started happening on the Flash's show, which is basically Nash down in the tunnels staring at this doorway basically with all these like weird symbols on it. And he's kind of just been helped or saved by the Monitor, and now he's face to face with his quote unquote, destiny goal, whatever. He's sitting there and he's going, and the time, I know I'm jumping around because there's a lot, but a time appears at the bottom, December 9th, 2019, 11:58. Apparently that's going to be super crucial. I talked about it a little bit over in The Flash as well, and especially now that we're seeing it twice, this moment here has got to mean something. So I'm kind of curious to see. So, because basically the time shows up December 9th, 2019, 11:58. He's standing in front of the doorway that he's finally gotten a hold of, and he's given his kind of final speech. Like, I have crossed all these worlds to try and hunt you down and kill you. And now that I'm face to face with you, you've helped me. And I'm not, he's not totally sure on how he's to proceed. And basically the voice, or his voice that he believes to be the Monitor, because I'm not sure it's the Monitor. We don't 100% know that. Yeah, we think it is, and we have pretty good evidence, but we know that anything can change. So he's like, I don't really know what to do. And the voice kind of goes, you know what to do. You have the knowledge inside of you. Come start your life anew. And then he just walks up. He pushes the symbols in a specific order, and then a light appears, and he kind of gets pulled into it, and then that's it. That's all we get. I have no idea what that means, and it was super interesting to see on. I'm sure I kind of now it's gonna make me want to go watch all the shows. So I'm almost wondering if it happened on each show, because Crisis is 5 parts, so that I believe it happened. The show goes from Supergirl to Legends to, I think, Batwoman to Arrow to The Flash, I want to say. And so, like, if it happened on the last episode before Crisis on every one of those episodes, if it happened on 2, so we know it's crucial. So I'm super excited. I'm going to start watching Crisis right away now that we've kind of caught up with the big storylines of Arrow and Flash. Crisis is here. I'm here to tell you all about it. Stay tuned. What did you guys think of the last episode of Arrow? What have been your favorite moments throughout the whole show? I think season 1 is still one of my favorites, especially with him not really being hero Arrow, but more vigilante, just snapping necks and killing all of his merry long way. But that's for you guys to decide. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite Arrow moments have been. I will watch the other 2 episodes, especially the last one, which is kind of going to be like their goodbye episode. And that's when I'll kind of go through my favorite moments and kind of looking back at the whole seasons of Arrow. This one I wanted to say, I really want to keep the focus on Crisis because that's where the big stuff is. I don't know what Lila is being the Harbinger will bring or what that really means. Or if what abilities she now has. But Crisis is here, everybody. Stay tuned till next time. Bye.